Hey, very good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to today's event organized by IES-INCA Accelebator and with SHRI. And welcome all the IES members, engineers here joining us for the first time. We'll be introducing some of these ideas about technopreneurship. And as we go along, we'll have chance for asking questions as well. And we'll all learn together. So I invite you all to be interactive. Feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself and also put in your questions later. Okay. So I'm Andy Wee. I'm the General Manager for IES-INCA, which stands for IES Incubator Accelerator. And I'll be doing a quick introduction of today's talk. Okay. So this is today's program. We'll be doing a quick introduction of IES-INCA. And we'll have Mr. Peng who will be sharing about the success factors in technopreneurship. We'll have Mr. Alvin share about the best practices in human capital management. We'll have Mr. Eric Tan share about venture building, lead from ideas to business venture. And we'll be doing a quick introduction about IES entrepreneurship programs as well as MADventures program. Then we'll have a panel Q&A where you can feel free to ask any questions you might have. And then we'll have chance to interact as well at the end. Okay. Let me start off with my introduction to IES-INCA. Okay. So for those who are not familiar, IES is actually the Institution of Engineers Singapore. And it's been around since 1966 to promote the advance and promote the science, art, of professional engineering for the well-being of mankind. And the vision of IES is really to be the heart and voice of engineers as a national body and home for engineers in Singapore. This is our IES Council, consists of members from different sectors of engineering, as well as people from the government sector, the private sector, as well as academia. So our council members work together to promote development of engineering in Singapore. Okay, from there, we extend from IES, Institution of Engineers Singapore, to IES-INCA. That's the organization where I come from, where we promote technopreneurship, and we help to connect technopreneurs, mentors, and investors to build the IES venture community. We hope to see sustainable and successful tech ventures coming out from our incubation and support. Yeah. Some of the activities we have been doing, we have been supporting incubatees. We have 18 of them. We have 80 plus mentors who are ever ready to help our incubatees. We have 70 plus investors in our network, and also a community of 750 plus participants who have come to our past events and participated on programs. Okay, some of the activities we have had in the past 2 years, where we started in July 2019. We have done various events face-to-face, and over the COVID period, we have been doing a lot of webinars as well to promote some of the activities of incubatees, as well as bring up some of the current topics of sustainability in business areas to help our engineers understand better what it likes to run a technology business. Okay. These are some of our members of our INCA board, and current chairman of the IES-INCA is Engineer Chong Ki Sin. And we are very fortunate to have Mr. Peng, who is also one of our board members, to share with you later. We also have board members who are not engineers, like Mr. Tioselak and Mr. Bill Chua, who are supporting us in the business and finance area. Okay. So what does our incubator do? We actually support IES members, engineers, corporate SME spin-offs, IHL spin-offs in their commercialization and scale-up. We provide mentoring, engineering translation, and also business support training to help them link to the investors, to the market, and also to the business network that IES offers. Besides that, we also try to put together the corporate problem statements where engineers can look at and use their domain knowledge and expertise to build ventures around as well. Yeah. And the focus areas for IES-INCA is the infrastructure technology, building related materials, processes and facilities management, IoT for industrial purpose and smart cities, robotics automation, clean tech sustainability. These are areas that we want to support in the scale-up stage of the business. And companies that have done their customer discovery and validation, they can come to us where we provide them with the business structuring, business planning to help to source the fundraising, through guidance from our mentors and our IES network. And companies exceed incubation when they have an executable business plan and also the required funding to execute the plan to build and grow their company. Okay. Some of our partners that we have been working with: Enterprise Singapore, IPI, A-Star Accelerate, and various venture company, investment companies and partners, as well as ISCA, our partner in the who is in the national body for accountants and CFOs, where they have provide us finance mentors as well. And through our network, we get IES members, ISCA members, as well as our angel VC investors to form a network where they have 12.2 million to invest into companies. And our latest partners is BOP Hub, which looks at the emerging markets, and also E27 as a media partner to support us in growing awareness of our incubators activities and also the engineering new ventures. Okay. So besides helping the incubators, we are also looking to help engineering technology SMEs transform for growth. And you can engage with our business consultants to review your business, to relook at your business model, or you can also park your spin-offs with us for incubation. So I will send you the link later. Yeah. So besides incubation, we are also supporting first-time founders in the application and administration of this SHRI Founder Grant, where you can get 1 to 5 matching, 50K from the government to support your new venture. So if you are keen on that, feel free to follow the link and also talk to us, and we will advise you further. Yeah. So do look out this ESG Startup SHRI network, where you can get connected with many fellow technopreneurs, investors, and also mentors. This is supported by the government through Enterprise Singapore. Okay, some of the courses that we run, later I'll explain more in details, but first one is a Technopreneurship course in Deep Tech Ventures and also technical selling, some of the skills that engineers really need to grow their business. Okay, this is my contact, and I will be moving on to the next part of the presentation. I will be inviting Mr. Peng, who is been in the business for a long time and has been leading many of the tech companies, as well as in mentoring and also investment, to share with you more about his insights into the success factors for technopreneurship. So hand over the stage to Mr. Fu.
Thank you, Andy. I'll share screen. My topic for today is on success factors in technopreneurship. I would, let's see, okay. I will start by introducing myself. Currently, I'm the chair of the Technopreneurship Development Committee in IES, and I'm also vice chair of the IES-INCA, which Andy mentioned. My background is basically an engineer from the Air Force. I retired from the Air Force. But in terms of entrepreneurship, I have been doing a startup before. And I've also been on the other side, besides being a startup, also on the investor side, started the VC fund under iSpace Innovations in 2016. And currently, I'm working with Wesley Clover, a Canadian venture building fund, which is being set up, which will be set up here in Singapore, hopefully by next year. And I'm also involved in IES-INCA. So, and I'm a mentor with NUS, NTU, as well as SUTD. I've been involved with entrepreneurship for the last 6-7 years. So my aim today is to talk a little bit about what it takes to be a technopreneur. If any of you have any questions, you can ask or put in the chat box. Maybe Andy can help me take a look at the chat box since I've been doing the presentation. So what about being a technopreneur? I think most of us are engineers, right? By vocation and by education. And why are we talking about technopreneurship? We're talking about promoting technology and to use technology as a form of starting a business. So what does it take for this to happen? Okay, as you can see from this slide, CB Insights, I did a check on this. CB Insights is a very good research company, and they have recently revised their study on why startups fail. And this one I just searched online and just look up the most recent one. I think this was published in the first half of this year by CB Insights. And because it was over the COVID year 2020 and the beginning of 2021, the very first reason startups fail is they ran out of cash. I think COVID has also hindered quite a lot of startups. And I think when they interviewed the most recent 100 plus failed startups, one of the key reasons that came out here, 38% of them are running out of cash or fail to raise new capital. So that is a huge impact of COVID-19 in the recent 2 years on startups. But notwithstanding COVID-19, the second reason, no market need, is actually one of the main reasons why most startups fail. Okay, no market need means you have a product, but you don't find a customer that wants your product. And quite a lot of engineering companies, quite a lot of engineering universities, especially I work with NUS and TU, they start with technology, right? You have an IP and you find use for your IP. Quite often, this is the most difficult phase. And when you do find, you think that you have a fantastic technology on an idea, but eventually when you launch it, the statistics shows that 35% fail because people feel that there's no market need for your product. You know, the other reason is you get out-competed. Okay, you get out-competed. That means there are competition here and they fail to match the competition, so they are forced out of the market. And the fourth reason is actually a flawed business model. What do you mean by a business model? How do we get products to reach your customers? What way of selling are you going to do? How are you going to reach your customers? How are you going to maintain those customers? And how do you make them aware? So what is the particular business model that you've designed to reach your customers? So 90% flawed business model. Fifth one is regulatory and legal challenges. This one, I think we'll go through this a little bit more later on. Pricing and cost issues, wrong pricing or failure to estimate what is the cost of production as well as reaching your customers. Okay, and the seventh reason is actually not the right team. And this is a failure of execution. Getting the right team is another reason. Okay, product is timing of your product in the market is another reason why startups fail, followed by poor product. Here is a failure of proper product development or even going to market. Okay, disharmony among team and investors, pivot gone wrong, and then finally, less of a reason, burnout or lack of passion. You started a good idea, we end up 5% at least. Okay, so these are the reasons why startups fail, right? Which also indicates what are the key reasons why we should be focusing on to make sure that we don't fail. Okay, but let's look at why startups succeed. The most important factors for startup success: timing. Okay, you realize that in the other slide, when we talk about CB Insights, timing of product is probably the 10th or the 9th reason for failure. In this case, why startups succeeds? Timing is very important. We'll talk about how do we get the timing correct. Team. The second most important reason, 32% why startups succeed, is because of the team. Okay. Third one, ideas. Fourth one, business model, getting the business model right. And the fifth most important for startup success is funding. Okay. So looking at all this, how do we actually make our, we want to have if we have an idea, we want to make it into a business. How do we actually do it if we take all those into consideration? Okay, there is a systematic approach, and we do use this approach in the universities. And right now, I think it's a national program to use what we call the Lean Launchpad program. And the Lean Launchpad program is based on a fundamental concept developed by Steve Peng called the business model canvas. Here on this particular slide on the right side, you will see that there is an example of a business model canvas. And this canvas is actually a very succinct way of looking at your business from at least 9 particular categories, and there are 9 boxes there. Okay, and we are looking at how do we create value for customers. And by using this business model, we can look at lowering risk of failures. And you look at the business model, the blue sections are all about customers and how do you reach them and what sort of relationships we have with them. And that's what we call customer discovery. And from there, we want to find out what are the needs of the market. And therefore, what are the value propositions that can be derived from these particular needs, and then we design the product. Okay, the left-hand box, those in pink, are talking about how do we make the products and what are the key activities and resources that we can do to produce the products better and in a cost-effective manner, and also to protect our intellectual property or advantage. Okay, and the bottom two is about revenue and cost. So this particular approach using the BMC is a very systematic way, and there is it allows us to systematically look at whether our idea can have a market, whether there are customers, and therefore moving forward, how do we once they establish there's a need for that, we have a product market fit. We then look at how do we make the product. Okay, and then we look at pricing the product correctly and how do we bring that to market. So this is one particular way that we are using, and I think it's a very effective way. I think quite a lot of the accelerators today uses this model, and so we are doing this using this particular model. So in the course that I do conduct, the Technopreneurship program, one of the things I do use is this particular BMC, the business model canvas. Okay. The most important thing about the business model canvas is that it's not based on assumptions. Okay, it's based on whether or not they're based on actually going out to get data to prove to us that there is what we assume is correct. Okay, you start out with a hypothesis, thinking that this is what the needs are. You identify what the customer segment, and then you go out to interview it. You get those feedback. You design your product. You make what we call a minimum viable product, and then you send it out, and you get feedback. So you build a product, then you measure by sending this product out or letting your potential customers look at this product, and you find out what is the feedback, and then you learn from those, and then you may want to rejig or rebuild, or you may even want to pivot your whole business. So the whole idea is going out to find out what the market really needs. Okay, and not what your technology can do, but what really do people need, and therefore iterating along the way. Okay, getting information, getting data, and then learning from that, and then designing your product, redesigning your product, or even pivot your whole business approach. So that's what we do. We also talk about how do we, growing a startup actually, we also talk about how do we start from an idea into forming product market, fit, and then making a product, and then going out and starting a company, and then the scale to get funding. So the whole process of formation, validation, and growth, where we ideate, we have the concept, we commit, and then we validate and scale, and then we establish. Okay, once you do that, so we also talk about, remember one of the key reasons for 2021, the failure of startups is funding. In Singapore, we are lucky. We are fortunate because our government has a lot of grants and schemes and programs to help Singapore startups. And I think, especially during the COVID-19 2020, the government has even reinforced this even further. Shown here are the different SG, under ESG, the SG grants or programs, SG loan, founder, talent, tech, equity, accelerator, infrastructure. But we also need to look at how VCs, angels, and FFF means family and friends, are able to look at funding from those perspectives. And it's important because at different stages of startup, there are different funding requirements. So we will look at that as well. So funding is a hugely important factor, and the ability to understand where we can get funds from and at which stage do we get funds from, and also how do we make sure that we get the funds at the right stage going forward as your company builds up. Lastly, I'll talk about how, if you need funds, you need to interest investors, right? Or even you need to interest people to join you. So we talk a bit about how to pitch, how do you sell yourself, and how do you develop investor deck. And we talk about how do you tell people a story, get their interest, and then what you can ask, okay, to get people to join you, to get people to invest in you. So this is part of what we do in the Technopreneurship program. Okay, so that's what I have roughly in brief, what is on my mind. Are there any questions?
Okay, maybe we just pause here if there's any questions from the audience. Yeah.
Anyone got any questions? I have to leave by, well, in about 5 minutes. I have another session. I will not be participating in the panel later, so if you have any questions, you can ask now.
So maybe I just ask Peng, like from your experience of investing and working with founders in Singapore in a practical basis, what is the main thing that really the companies don't grow? Where do they usually get stuck?
Actually, quite a lot of ideas get stuck because they couldn't find the product market fit. Most of the, if you talk about a very early stage, okay, my experience with very early stage is that quite a number of them have an idea, but they're not able to validate whether this particular idea can develop into a product during the customer discovery program. So that stage is very important. And quite a number of them fail at that stage. So even before you get off the ground, you already can't find your market fit. In fact, in most of the universities programs that we have, I think almost 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 didn't progress beyond just participating in the LLP program. The 1 or 2 that got through, most of them are struggling. In fact, we find that after 3 or 4 years, some of them are still existing, but they're not growing at the rate that at a high growth rate. One of the key issues is also the limitation of market size. Okay, Singapore is a good test bed, but Singapore market is very limited. So that's why I prefer to work with venture capitalists or venture builders that have a base outside Singapore, because they can help you scale in whichever countries much faster. So scaling is very important once you get started. It's not just getting the initial funding. So while the Singapore government has a lot of grants and helps you, there are a lot of very good VCs coming into Singapore. But I think the most important reason is the most important aspect is, so how do you scale outside Singapore? So I work with the Canadian venture builder. They have got quite a number, got quite a worldwide reach. So you plug in with them, you get a more international outreach. ESG helps startups to also go into other markets, and that's very good as government realize that, and they are able to help them launch. So as I said, these are the few things that my personal experience shows. The other thing that I always say is that if you have a great idea, but not a very good team, it's unlikely that VCs will invest. You have a moderate idea, but an excellent team, quite likely the VC will invest. But if you have a great idea with a great team, obviously there's a snapshot. And I think the key in that in those statements is that the most important is actually the team itself. I think one of the speakers will talk about people. I think most investors look out for people. Okay, money is one thing, but it's who is driving the program and who will make it work. Because as a startup, one thing is for sure, obstacles is guaranteed. Challenges along the way, you definitely meet all kinds of challenges along the way. You have to solve those problems. I think people are the most important factor here. People who can adapt, people who are willing to who are motivated enough to meet those challenges and solve those problems along the way.
Okay, thank you, Kim Peng. Derek, you have a question? Okay. If not, maybe one last question for Kim Peng. For engineers, what skills should they pick up to be a successful technopreneur that you feel that they should just go for it? Yeah, that they really need. Yeah.
I think the most important two skills that you need to have is actually empathy. The ability to understand your customer, or to really understand what the customer needs, is the most important, because that is a key to understanding whether you have a product market fit. And the second most important is the ability to be able to be highly flexible in yours. So as an engineer, we develop in a very logical way, and for some of us, we are very hardcore engineers. But to be an entrepreneur, you actually need a lot more skill sets than just being an engineer in product development or in solving engineering problems. So you need to understand a lot more about psychology, finances, and so on and so forth. So there are a lot more other skill sets that we need to have. So I think you need to really to be open and to be highly flexible and to continue to learn. Because if you have that plus your empathy, I think it will go a very long way in meeting the changing demands.
Great. Thank you, Kim Peng, for those inputs. I think we take away two things: have empathy and have agility. If you don't have that, never mind, go form a team and find people who have that. Join you. Thank you, Kim Peng. Yeah, we will move on to the...
Thank you very much. I'll leave you guys.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the next part of the presentation. We are very fortunate to have Alvin Goh, who is the Executive Director of SHRI. And he's lots of experience in working across various sectors, from local companies, government agencies to multinational companies. And he's really very much into the HR part of it, where people skills, working together in teams is very, very important for the growth of the company. So over to you, Alvin. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for inviting me to share a little bit on the HR front. I'm the Executive Director of Singapore Human Resource Institute. We are a non-profit organization formed back in 1965. And we basically look into advocacy of progressive people and best practices in the HR front. A little bit about myself. As I said, I joined SHRI about 2 years ago. Prior to that, I was a banker. I was chief of staff and head of CEO office for a regional bank covering all things finances and financials. And I've also done a few mergers and acquisitions. And personally, I'm also a mentor to a few startups and also have been invested in one or two pretty profitable startups in the past, and I also started a business in China and also sold it off after I came back from China back to Singapore. So really today, my view and my sharing session is just a very light touch on all things human resource in the startup environment. All right. So I think the first and foremost things is that, all of us will go through various phases from startup, growth, establishment, expansion, and then of course maturity, right? But I think throughout the entire life cycle of your startup journey itself, don't forget about the Employment Act, because this is something that will come back and bite you very badly to a large extent if you don't adhere to the necessary terms and conditions of the employment laws, and even for that matter, the tripartite alliances for fair and progressive practices. All right. You definitely would like to want to pay your people on time, have the minimum and adhering to, the hours of work and so forth. Although these are all very regulated and very mundane itself, but, I found that a lot of startups in my lifetime as well founders have actually, forgo about all these things when they actually look into hiring. And at the end of the day, a lot of times they come back and bite you. All right. And this is something that you don't really want to fall into itself, right? And be bothered to be invited for coffee or tea by the Ministry of Manpower and so forth. And these are all time taken away from hacking your own solutions and your products itself, and something that you don't want to go into. All right. But of course, sometimes we have to think about the hygiene factors when you look into yourself. And I think Peng was actually sharing about why startups fail, and a lot of times it's all about finances, right? And finances itself, of course, when you look at the cost of running a startup, the personnel cost is always one of the items that we really have to look into, right? And in all the phases itself, as you go into your bootstrapping stage, early seed stage funding, if you manage to move into the second phase of your growth stage, whereby you're good enough to go into the series funding stages of A, B, and C and whatnot, and finally at IPO stages. And so I think the key questions that need to be answered as a startup, as an entrepreneur at the start of your business itself is how should equity be divided among my co-founders? I think that's something that a lot of founders struggle with. I've seen startups whereby the founders actually gave their business away even before launching their product by giving out like 20%, 30% of sweat equity to their co-founders or for their first few hires. I think that's really, really a major mistake when we try to actually, bring on your first few hires and you give them sweat equity, and by giving away all these percentages, all right? Sometimes when you talk about contracts itself, some of the founders that I've come across with, they offer, like, for example, first round, 2 rounds, no dilution contracts and stuff like that. I think these are all very simple mistakes that a lot of the founders fall into, all right? So I think also the next question is also that a lot of times as founders, you also have to ask yourself, do I even want to draw a salary? Because all this all adds on into your personnel costs, all right? And I think some of the issues that you also will face is that who should I hire first? Do I hire my product guys? Do I hire a HR admin? Do I hire a marketing? At what stage do I start bringing people on board, right? Or even for that matter, should I even need a HR department for that matter? So I think these are the key questions that you really have to ask yourself, right? But for the sake of simple sharing itself, I'm just going to share with you, perhaps some of the many ways to skin a cat in terms of what you can actually offer during your startup phases itself. I think a lot of us will start off with sweat equity. Some of us will also move into phantom stocks, all right? As you grow your business throughout the establishment and expansion stage, some organizations will also look into employee stock options, performance shares, and so forth. But one thing for sure is that whatever you do, all right, there will be some personnel costs in terms of base salary and hourly wages that you really look into it, all right? Some of the third areas that a lot of founders have also been pretty successful is also to look into annual incentive plans to give it to their first few hires. They celebrate small wins like bonus or sport awards, all right? But those are what we call the tangible, the hygiene factors, all right, the financial dollars itself. But many a times your first few hires, your founders, your co-founders that come on to want to join you, all right, a lot of times the intangibles also goes a long way with a lot of your new hires. For example, the quality of work, all right. And if you ask yourself, I believe most of us have actually read about this great resignation. And even recently, the public service division, also were asking around, is like, why are my young employees leaving the civil service, right? And I did a simple poll and I asked around itself. And perhaps maybe one of the key questions is that a lot of employees are leaving more matured organizations, the large local enterprises, the multinationals, and everything is that. And the response I got was that they want to join startups or young organizations because they believe they can actually shape the culture of the organization. All right, and therefore they're leaving the more established organizations, the more mature organizations to join these startup organizations because they find that the quality of work for them resonates very closely with them. All right. Of course, we talk about work-life balance, inspirational values, and so forth, right? And future growth opportunities. I think these are the intangibles that you can actually sell, all right, to potential hires, right? Knowing that for one is that you're not going to pay market rates in terms of your salaries and in terms of your salaries, right? So I think the intangibles actually go a long way as well when you actually start to hire. Of course, the last but not least is the good to haves, right? The cars, clubs, and physical examinations, health checks, and whatnot. I think these all will come later, right? I think for startups, I think it's important to actually then look at the intangibles equally as important as the tangibles as well. All right. So in terms of, I'm going to share with you 6 hiring myths in terms of when it comes to entrepreneurs itself, right? Myth 1, right? A lot of organizations or founders say that I don't really need their job descriptions, but if you really look at the principles and the value of it itself, a job description is more than a piece of paper. It looks into key aspects such as the technical requirements of the job, right? Knowledge required to perform the job, the problem-solving aspects that you require the job holder to possess and have, all right? And as well as the outputs of the job, right? It helps entrepreneurs commit to finding the right person. And no doubt there will never be a perfect candidate, right? So please do not over-leverage or overextend yourself, always trying to find a perfect candidate, right? There's never going to be a perfect candidate. So follow the job description, put your thoughts into a piece of paper and say, what is it that I need in my first few hires? What is it that I need to deliver? Work out the technical competencies that you require, all right, and then start to advertise. It will give the potential employee, your potential candidate, a good frame of mind. What are the requirements of the job? All right. Myth number 2, all right, new employees need to take a pay cut, all right, and this is not really true, all right. There are many ways to skin a cat. As such, many differing ways to reward them as well. As I shared earlier on, look towards the intangibles as well, right? Allow your first few hires to co-create the organization culture with you rather than you as the founder dictating how you want things to run, all right? I think at the end of the day, it's also about the employee value proposition, the EVP that you're trying to create, and get different people involved, all right? And I think when that happens, the culture becomes more vibrant, the teamwork becomes more entrenched in the organization, and you set a very good, strong foundation for your organization to grow, right? Myth number 3, all right, we can do everything and anything, all right, as what the Hokkien say, right? Pao sua, pao hai, everything, all I pao. The CEO pao everything, all right? My wife also pao everything. So if you think about the more recent social narrative about bringing family members into your startups, think about what's their company's name? NOC, right? 9 Hours Cinematics. And I think it spells a lot of issues, all right? I think it's important to have a demarcation of clear roles and responsibilities so as to not only between, if you intend to bring your family members into the startup scene itself, at least then you have clear demarcation of who is doing what, all right, it also helps you as the founder, right, to start to delegate some of the work to other people so that at the end of the day, it's a team effort to get where you want to go. All right, myth number 4, every day is a Monday. All right, your new hires, all right, aren't founders. So really, you need to get real on how many hours you expect them to put in, no matter how passionate you are or they are. So every day is not a Monday. You still need to follow and respect, all right, the Mondays to Fridays, the working hours and so forth. All right, again, I cannot stress enough, by the time you don't want your first few hires to go out in the burnout situation, and at the end of the day, after 3 months, after 6 months of sweating it out of you, they start to quit. And then at the end of the day, you create a reputational issue for yourself among the startup scene. Look towards social platforms like Glassdoor, and you see that when employees are not happy, this is where they go to start to rant about you. All right. And at the end of the day, you find that, hey, how come I'm not able to attract the type of people that I want, despite being able to so-called afford a little bit more in terms of the dollars and cents. All right. Myth number 5, you need to hire fast, as speed to market is key. All right. It's not true. I think you really need to take your time to hire your first potential hires. As Peng shared earlier on, which really resonates with me as an investor myself. When I want to invest in somewhere, I want to look at who are the leaders of the organization. I want to know how long you guys have been working together. All right. How you met. All right. What are the roles? Okay. And who are actually your core team as well, right? And who's doing what? Hire fast, fire fast as well. All right. Because toxic employees can really derail your whole entire organization and your startup. All right. Because as I said here, a wrong fit can really create a lot of chaos in your organization, right? And honestly, you do not want to be trying to hack such issues. You want to focus your energy and your concentration on hacking your product or your solution as well. All right. Myth number 6, I think what I'm saying here is the best in class means largest salaries and benefits package. It's not true. All right. Few people stay with a company or leave basically purely on financial gain. Right. In fact, many employees, as I shared earlier on, leave an organization because they want to contribute more effectively. Right. They are looking at sometimes the intangibles as well. Right. About joining a startup organization, being able to shape the culture, being to provide the direction as well as how the organization to unfold. Right. Appeal to their achievement motives. Right. Appeal to their strengths. Right. In bringing them on board. Right. So it doesn't mean that hiring the best means I need to pay top dollars. No. Look at the intangibles as a startups. Last but not least, in my last slide itself, in terms of how to go about hacking HR for startups, I think as I shared earlier on, defining and attracting the right talent is very important in your first few days or in terms of your first few phases itself. Build as you grow. I can't emphasize more in terms of building your organization in terms of your headcount as you grow the business and not over leveraging. I think a lot of startups fail to understand this and they try to over leverage by hiring too many people too fast, right? And at the end of the day, there's not enough work to go around, right? And that creates a lot of issues. Defining the organization culture is important, as I said earlier on, why people are resigning, all right? Allow your first few hires to shape your culture, all right? Something for you guys to think about whether I want to shape the culture or I allow my employees to shape the culture together with me. I think the third point here is in terms of hacking HR itself, is a lot have to do with providing and creating clear channels of communication. Given the COVID situation and that we are all virtually working from home to a large extent, how are you going to create that level of clarity for your entire organization? All right, because as we all know, effective communication can either make or break the organization. Clarity provides the direction of where you want everyone to focus. Direction without clarity only creates issues for yourself. All right, and allowing your employees to voice out doesn't mean that they are rebellious. Look, after all, you are a startup, and being a startup shows that you yourself are quite a rebellious person. Doesn't mean you're in terms of not joining any organization. So I think it's important to allow your first few hires to really voice out their opinions and shape, right? And allow them to shape the organization together with you. So last but not least, this is my very brief sharing. So happy to take any questions furthermore, and look forward to Eric's sharing on the MADventures as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alvin, for that sharing. I love the HR topic in the Startup World. Is all about talent, attracting talent, motivating talent, and moving together as a great talent pool. Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to the next speaker. Yeah, we have Mr. Eric Tan, who is a trainer, business consultant, and multi-talented. And he's also was formerly a senior investment manager at Seeds Capital, the government investment arm, and also he has extensive knowledge in business, finance, risk management. He's also worked through with many organizations in NTU, SMU, ACE, and also gone through many pitches from the teams and knows what works and what doesn't work. And also one of our IES-INCA's financial mentors helping our incubators. So welcome Eric to share about Accelebator and also the topic of how you can grow your ventures or ideas to the venture. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Eric. So I'm from the Accelebator. Accelebator is basically a consulting firm, right, that focus on acceleration, incubation, and also skills development system and business connectivity, helping SMEs and entrepreneurs build communities around Asia. We are basically focusing on emerging markets. So a little bit about myself. After I left PricewaterhouseCoopers, I worked for a Singapore VC fund that is fully owned by the government. So I went through hundreds of startups during that time. Right. So right now, I'm running Accelebator as a consultancy firm with my partners. And I'm also an instructor and mentor, as Andy has mentioned. Part of the program that I'm doing, one of the programs I'm doing is the Lean Launchpad program, funded by NRF under NTU. Okay. So today I'm just going to talk a little bit about, very briefly about transiting an idea all the way to a business model, right? So all of us here are interested in the topic of starting our new venture. So we start, right, probably how does it look like? We have a lot of ideas, we have a lot of things, assumptions, hypotheses. So probably when we go to the drawing board, this is what it looks like when we try to pen down everything that is going to go into our business idea or what we think our business model is going to look like. It looks very hectic. How do we actually then make this into a proper business model? Okay, so this is something that my fellow speaker has spoke about in the first part, right? Peng has spoken about this. So one of the way to do this is that, right, we will put the business idea into a framework. The business model canvas is something that is very useful and widely accepted right now by a lot of programs, entrepreneurs, incubators, investors, right? It helps you to box out the different parts of the business model into the 9 components. And I think Peng has done a great job in explaining that. Okay, I want to just expand this a little bit here. Okay, the reason why the business model consists of 9 components, and the other thing that we take note here is that, right, everything here is linked. We look at this business model canvas from the right-hand side to the left-hand side. We identify the customers, we know what the value proposition to them. The customer relationship and channel tells us how we actually deliver. And this is just the right-hand side. It's the most important thing, as Peng has spoken about. The left-hand side actually addresses the question of how the business can be carried out based on what we have arrived or validated on the right-hand side. Okay. So yeah, we have similar slides here to Peng. One of the top 2 reasons in the past, in 2012, this was the CB Insight results for the top reason why startup failed. The number 1 reason was actually no market need. In 2018, it became the second reason, but still one of the top 3. Okay. The reason why we highlighted no market need as one of the most important reasons is because, right, the validation of any business model for any venture starts with identifying your customers and making sure that the market is viable through validation. Okay, so customer identification, some of the things we have to address is that we need to know who, what are the problems and needs that they have, and what can we actually offer. Okay. So the offering that we are going to give to the customers is never about the product features or the product you're offering. It is about the value proposition that you are giving to the customer. Okay. A lot of startups that I've gone through, I mean, by now I think I've gone through thousands of startups. pitches, right? And ventures from corporate customers as well. A lot of time when the venture builders try to identify a customer segment, what we see is that they are flying at 10,000 feet above the ground. Okay, they give a very exciting market size to say that, okay, these people are actually my market segment. It can go into the tens of billions of dollars. But however, if let's say the product or the value proposition we are actually trying to provide to the market segment doesn't have a good fit, it actually doesn't go down very well when you're pitching this to investors. Right? The investors have to know that how your product can provide a very niche and targeted value proposition to the customer segment. So it must be relevant. Okay. And next, once we have done that, we need to know that the market is viable. Okay. How big is the market? How fast is it growing? Do we have to go down more niche or narrow down to a beachhead segment? These are things that we need to know, and what are the competition we are targeting. So all this require a lot of groundwork and a lot of validation. It is easy to teach the concept, but it's more difficult to walk the talk. So it is important that you have to go out there with hypothesis, go to the ground, do validation, and also work with mentors or coaches to actually connect you with the right people, the relevant network to do the validation necessary. Okay. So this is something that Peng has spoke about, which I totally agree. We have to go through the feedback loop. Even after you go to the market, you do validation. When you come back to your business model canvas or any other business model framework that you are using, you have validated or invalidated a certain assumption. So what that means is that you have to actually pivot or make some changes. Every change you make to every component will affect all the other components. They're all interlinked. So that means that you actually arrive at perhaps some new assumption for other components which need to be revalidated. So this is something that you do again and again. The reason why this is important is to help you to save time. There is a saying in the US, in the startup world, that if you want to fail fast. All right, that is very true. If let's say our assumption is wrong, we want to know it as soon as possible so that we can pivot and we save time. When we're doing venture building, be it a startup or a corporate, as an enterprise, there are actually limited resources for us to embark on the venture building. End of the day, we have to make sure that we are able to correct the cost or find the best fitted business model or the correct product market fit in the shortest possible time. And the going back to the market, going back to the ground to get feedback is the best and fastest way to do that. Rather than you build the whole product, you go to market, nobody want to buy, and that's all the effort and time wasted. Okay. So the entire process, right, looks something like this. Okay, all this model that we are doing are shared assumption tools that put our thoughts into place. Okay, I come across a lot of business owners. Some of them are taokes, the more traditional one. They are brilliant and they have very good business. And when you ask them about business plan, then no plan. Actually, that is not true. All right. When I sit down and have coffee with them, I talk to them, I realize that actually they think through a lot. There's actually a lot of validation they do, but they are coming from a generation of a school of hard knock. All right, they learn through experience, but there are actually certain things. The only difference is that they do not put it into a business model or a framework. The disadvantage of that means is that you have to go out there and try, knock on walls, fell down, pick up yourself up. So it takes a longer time. By making use of whatever canvas or tool we have, right, we frame it up and we do validation. It allows us to accelerate the time needed to gain the same amount of experience that they have. And what it will do is that the more rounds of feedback that we do, okay, it will help us to converge and align the business model towards evolution and progress towards a successful venture building. So some of the questions we have to ask also is that, where is our product at? Are we at the early adopter stage, or we are at the middle ground or mass adoption? Okay, there's always a chasm to actually cross when we are trying to target mass market. But a lot of time when we are pushing out a new venture, we are only able to validate the early adopters or the first part of the market whereby they're going to try new things. There's also a lot more science and strategy that goes towards crossing the chasm to actually get mass adoption from the mass market. So these are things that comes with experience, models and all that give us a head start, give us some concept, but a lot of coaching and hand guiding is needed. Okay. So this, in a typical venture building process, right, it looks like S-curve. This is what it looks like. All right, so when we are starting, where is the traction? This thing is not going anywhere. Maybe is it hopeless? Don't know. Should we continue? And then if we get the business model right, we hit the right buttons, we hit the nail in the right places, all right, then it started happening and you start to see scaling. All right, and it will grow to a point whereby, whoa, we're going to be rich. But with any venture that we build, the natural curve is that, right, you will actually start to taper off and sometimes you start to dip. Okay. What is different between some companies, as you can, some of you will think ahead, but there are companies that have been making money over a long period of time. There's two reasons. One reason is that their S-curve may be something that actually drags longer in terms of the time, the x-axis. The other reason is that, right, actually a lot of companies you see, like for example, Facebook, they just changed their name from Facebook to Meta, right? Because they recognize that social media, the Facebook business is a passe, it's on the decline. All right, my kids tell me that, hey, only old people use Facebook, they move on to Instagram, right? So you need to look at the second S-curve to figure out what is the next innovation they're going to do. So for Facebook, for Mark Zuckerberg, what they have identified is the metaverse. That's where the money is for the next round of internet evolution, right? So the S-curve is not just for new startups. So startup or new entrepreneurs, new startup, they are basically looking at the first S-curve starting from zero. But even for companies that are more mature, been around for like 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, even 10, 20, 50 years, okay, if let's say the business start to taper off, decline, right, they need to look at the next S-curve. And companies that last forever, they actually has multiple S-curves. So this is an example. So each S-curve that you're going through, right, there is innovation involved. GE, General Electric used to be one of the biggest, they used to be the biggest company in the world. And if all, from those generations, most of us will know that, right, GE, one of the constant they have is change organization. They change all the time. Every year, they will buy and sell about 200 to 300 entities. They will invest, divest, because they are looking at multiple S-curve at any one point of time. Okay. So how the S-curve comes in terms of planning for your venture building. So I put this here, the S-curve basically translate to here. We have to do a very simple cumulative cash flow analysis. One of the top reasons that startup fail is because they run out of cash. As with any companies that are actually building, doing a venture building, right? You always have to start somewhere. In the beginning of the S-curve, whereby the scale or the growth is not there, right? This is where you're actually spending money, right? And you need to have enough cash flow. You need to have enough cash flow to actually buy through this period whereby the payback period start to kick in, all right? And before you reach your break-even point and you start making profit. Okay. So cash flow analysis and cash flow management, right, is actually something that is very important in most startups. Okay. So where do we get the cash? Okay, so we probably have to look at fundraising, right? So Peng actually share a lot of different sources, and one of the key things is actually from investors. Okay, so if you were to raise funds from investors, right, investors also look at the J curve. Okay, sorry. So the S curve will translate to the J curve. So normally, right, when you are still in the valley of death and you're barely getting out, angel investors or seed capital is who you go to for fundraising, right? And then as you show progress and start to show growth and scale, you're looking at your series A, B, C, and then mezzanine. And of course, as you reach a tipping scale, there's also the public market, which is actually available nowadays. More easily available because of specs and other structure that we are seeing. However, to do that, you want to raise funds. If let's say you're an investor, put yourself in their shoes, what are the things that you look out for? End of the day, it goes back to the business model, right? Who are you targeting? So you have to answer all these questions. Okay, so the business model canvas helps us to actually frame it up. The thousands of business plans and features I've gone through over the 10+ years there are actually a lot of business plans that I read, right, and I receive. They are not coherent. Whatever they describe in the past, the front, the middle, and the back of the proposal is not coherent. The customer, they assume is this, the value proposition doesn't tie, or the activities or their resources allocation doesn't tie. So the business model canvas is very useful in trying to help us to frame up everything so that, you know, you have a bird's eye view of what your business model is, and it's easier for us to see, okay, how does all the boxes and components connect to each other. Okay. And of course, how to actually test feasibility. It is not as simple as putting in the assumptions inside and everything gels. We have to make sure that for any business, right, the 4 areas that investors or anyone look at is basically operational feasibility, technical feasibility, schedule feasibility, it can be done in time, right? And also the most important is financial feasibility. Okay. So some of these tests on how to actually look at this do have to come with experience. And it is important to have a coach to go through this with you. Okay, so I'll just end this off. These are very touch and go. There are a lot more concepts and models that we can share, but this is just to ping your interest. And basically, I want to say that, right, you don't have to be great to start, and but you have to start to be great. All right, Ken, thank you. Andy, back to you.
Thank you, Eric, for that sharing. I think there's a lot of information there that our audience can take home and think about. Yeah, certainly investing in learning and education will help us a lot as we go forward, yeah, to realize the potential of our venture. Okay, let's move on from here. So I'd like to just share with you some of the programs that IES-INCA has organized to help engineers to jumpstart their business knowledge and also to acquire the very key skills that you need to be able to grow your business. Yeah, so let me just do a quick share. Okay, hold on. Let me just pull that out. Okay. Okay. Yep. So as mentioned, Kim Peng will be running one of the courses that gives an overview to starting your venture and growing your venture. So this is an introductory course for those who are very new to this, and he will be introducing the ecosystem in Singapore, what to look out for, what you can get support in, what are the key areas that you need to look after, as well as pitching to investors, looking for growing the company. Yeah, so this is coming on the 23rd of November. It's a one-day course where you can sign up. IES members get a discounted rate. So later on, you can click on the link to see more about this course. Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of a one-day jumpstart for engineers. Yeah. Okay. The other course that we have organized is technical selling to the engineering industry, for engineers to understand what is value selling, what is the whole process of selling that you need to do. We have Mr. Leong Siu Wai, who is accredited professional management consultant. He's an entrepreneur. He's a startup mentor. He's also one of our mentors to incubatees, and he has very many years of knowledge. And for this course, we created this course because we realized that a lot of engineers can build solutions, can solve problems, but selling it and getting the right value for it to generate revenue doesn't come naturally to them. So this workshop really helps engineering professionals go into the area of doing sales and also marketing as well, how you can generate inbound interest for your product. And besides that, selling to your investors is also very important, how you communicate the value of your company. So this is where you can pick up some of the skills. Yeah, okay. And a separate note, we have an announcement for this upcoming Technopreneur Dialogue, where we have invited some of our board members to share with you their journey from going from engineer to technopreneur, looking at the journey and challenges. Yeah, so this is on Tuesday, 7 December, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. over the lunchtime period. We have a guest of honor, Mr. Zaki, who will be sharing with us some of the insights on the manpower side. And this event is organized by IES with IES-INCA and also support Enterprise Singapore. This week is the Switch week. So if you're not on the platform, today is day 3 of the Switch event. It's a year-long event where you can access many useful information about the ecosystem, as well as learn many different new skills and knowledge about what's happening in the innovation space. Yeah, so do sign up. Later, I'll send you the link as well. Okay, so those are some of the programs that IES has put up, and invite Eric to share with you about the MADventures. Yeah.
Thanks, Andy. Yeah, so the MADventure program, right, is something that Accelebator has come up with in collaboration with IES-INCA, SHRI, and Reaper to Wave. Okay, so based on what we just, based on this entire thing is anchored around the business model canvas, right? We are going to go through from the leap from a business idea to a validated business model. over the 12 weeks. Yeah. The actual commitment time is about 12 weeks, but it may spread over about 16 weeks because of the Christmas period and the Chinese New Year period. Yeah. For participants that actually participate in this, right, there are actually 8 modules that we will cover. It will go through the different components of the business model canvas, okay? And there will be coaches, coaching will be provided for all the participants the coaches will actually assist you in trying to see how we can validate your business model and also link you up with the correct connection to do the necessary validation. Okay. The chief trainer here is Mr. Anderson Tan. Okay, he is a serial entrepreneur and he manages actually quite several training organizations in Singapore. Right? And myself and Mr. S.C. Chong, we are both instructors at the LLP program for NTU, NUS, and a few other universities as well. Okay, so SC, just to share a little bit about him, is that he's very experienced and he has a very good track record in terms of product creation as well as design thinking and venture creation. Okay. So these are the 8 modules. The program will start from the 3rd of December and it will end on the 25th of March. And at the end of March, on the 31st of March, what we're going to do here is that we are going to organize a demo day for all the participants and graduates from this program. For the demo day, we'll be actually inviting the IHLs, the industry partners, and also as well as investors to attend. So this is also a very good platform and chance for you to actually showcase your venture to the world. Okay. This course is actually funded by SSG. It's under a approved training organization Experience. Okay. So the total fee is supposed to be about 6,300 plus, but with all the subsidy by the government, the net fee for the participant is only 1,532. Okay, that's the maximum funding that we can get. If the participants are sponsored by the employer, there's also absentee payroll. So the net fee from the course can go down to only about $700 over dollars. Right. So this is the link to sign up, and yeah, I put in a bigger QR code so it's easier for everybody to scan. All right. So if you're interested to sign up and register for the course, you can just scan this QR code. You bring the registration page, and then Experience, their program manager, will actually contact you for the information to sign up for the course. Yeah. Thank you. If you have any question, you can let me know.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah. So I will be sending you all the links in the email, post-event email later. But now we can take some questions from the audience here. If you have anything to ask about starting your business, running your business, looking for talent, keeping talent in the company, yeah, welcome to us. If you like to, just turn on your video, unmute yourself, and feel free to ask. Yeah. I will just kick off while you're thinking of some of the questions here. Yeah, Alvin, just maybe understand from you, in Singapore, how can the startup founders attract talent? Where can they find talent to join them? What is the situation in the talent pool in Singapore? Yeah.
I think the talent pool in Singapore is, as you know, if you really want to look for talent, there are always the traditional platforms like, you know, careers.sg site, the various job banks that you can always go into. But for founders, I always find that, you know, they always start an idea with their fellow friends and family members to some extent, you know, and that to some extent can be your first port of call for finding talent. All right. It's one thing to have passion, it's one thing to have technical skills, but as I shared earlier on, the role demarcation must also to some extent must be very clear in terms of your first few hires. You know, don't just go about that you have this great idea and or rather this great product that you want to do, and then, you know, go out and rope in your spouse or your brothers or sisters to come in. Don't forget, because every one of us, you know, will have to a large extent some financial resources or financial constraints and limitations. So going out to find your first few hires, you always can use the traditional source, but at the same time, look towards your closer networks, right? People who share the same idea with you, people that you have actually worked with, right? And you know them and they know you as well. I think these are all good options that one can have.
A common issue that a lot of the founders encounter is that they can't seem to pay what the established companies can pay, or what's out there. How do they attract talent to join them? What do you think is a key needed strategy they should take? Yeah.
So as I shared earlier on, right, sometimes when you have like-minded people, it's not about the dollars and cents, it's also the intangibles, right? That's why I say sometimes it's important to get to know your first few hires very well before you make an offer letter to them, knowing that you don't have the deep resources financially to pay even at market P50 or market average, right? But allow them to really shape and contribute to the organization's progress itself, and come from the intangible side, all right? Appeal to their achievement motives to be able to journey with you in terms of building this product or this service or this platform that you envisage. Share the ideas, build that commonality among your first few hires. And once you have that traction, and when you your first few sales, and when you translate to a little bit of monetary rewards, that's where you can offer spot rewards, as I shared earlier on. And some of the organizations offer that as a means to cover some of the hygiene issues. All right, you don't need to go out there and start paying at P75 of what the market is doing on top, or meeting whatever they want. Offer spot rewards. Spot rewards tend to work well. All right, and don't forget to actually share the fruits of the labor with all the team members as well. I think that's important.
Thanks, Alvin, for that information. Yep. Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Maybe we'll probably take a few, maybe one or two more, and if those of you want to chat, can hang around after we kind of officially end the event. Yeah. Maybe question for Eric. You've seen so many pitches. What are the most common mistakes that the entrepreneurs do? Yeah, that you have to explain over and over again.
There are actually a lot of, there are different type of, different people have different mistakes, but some of the most glaring one is that, right, the entrepreneurs always have the assumption that they have the best business or they have the best product without any validation. Okay, so end of the day, there are cases whereby I've seen certain businesses, they come to us to pitch. There is, from the financial projection of the business plan, right, we see no resources being allocated for marketing or business development, but yet the sales exponentially increase because they are under assumption that I have the best product, right? The market will come to me, the sales will come through my door, and people will queue up in front of my door. That doesn't happen. Okay, true venture building really take a lot of effort, and there's a lot of knocking on doors. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of mistakes we pick ourselves out. Okay. Yeah. So this is one of the pitfall that I see. The other pitfall that I see is that they are over optimistic in terms of planning for the cash flow, and they do not actually do proper financial planning. Okay, some startup, they fail not because they have a bad product, bad market, or they have a bad technology. It's because they never do ample planning in terms of cash flow projections or buffering for enough time to do fundraising. Okay, a lot of companies I see, they start raising funds when they are on the verge of running out of fund within 1 to 2 months. But the fact here is that fundraising is a very long-term process. It takes at least 6 months to 12 months. Okay, for the benefit of those that may not have done this before is that, you have to meet up or contact with at least perhaps on average about 100 investors before 1 or 2 is willing to put a term sheet on the table. So that is the process that we have to go through when we do fundraising. So don't underestimate the effort and the timeline needed to do fundraising. So start early. Yeah. Because to do that, you need to have a proper business model that is being validated in order to convince the investors. Yeah.
Maybe Eric, do you have some tips how the founders can accelerate the fundraising process in terms of preparation and in terms of things they can self-help? Yeah.
Well, I will say that, right, end of the day, it is an advantage if you know what the investors are looking for, because investors want to validate, or rather they need to convince their investment board that, you know, this is a good investment. They have a lot of different options. The same number applies. You have to talk to 100 investors. It means that, right, on a monthly basis, probably on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, you have to talk to 100 startups. The numbers is the same. So why are you the one that stand out, and why are you the one they have to actually invest, and why you are the one they want to talk to as soon as possible? Because they're afraid you go and get funding from another investor. Is to put together a very good business plan and a business model that is validated, right? So that's where the validation track record and what kind of growth matrix or what kind of matrix you need to present to them is very important. So putting out a compelling case with facts to validate this is very important. I'll just give a very simple example. I think everybody here know about Dropbox. We probably use G Drive or Dropbox at a certain point of time, right? When Dropbox was going out to do fundraising, no investors wanted to raise because such a concept of product is actually not common. They have difficulty raising funds to build their prototype. So in the end, they did a very simple MVP, and it's basically just a video. They managed to get there, and they don't have a finished product, but they actually show a video what the finished product is like, and ask for people to sign up as beta users. Overnight, they got about 70,000 interest sign-ups to be beta users, okay, or beta testers. And that is where this is a kind of validation they managed to bring across and show the investors. And from there, they managed to raise funds. And today we have Dropbox, G Drive, and a lot of other platforms. Yeah. So how do you convince them? It's very important.
Okay. Yeah. So I think various steps and methodologies can be learned as well. And certainly doing experiments could be a big part of them, which engineers, I'm sure, are very familiar with as well.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, you can learn how to do that and actually apply this to the MADventures program.
Yeah, I think in the MADventures program, you'll be doing your startup together with the learning. So it'll be a very good approach to lower your risk while you learn and do with some guidance. Okay. I don't think we'll see any questions. We'll probably end for today, and we'll hang around a bit. If any of you like to chat or have further questions, feel free to turn on your video and just have a chat with us. If not, thank you very much for being with us today. I hope you have learned some new knowledge of how ventures can be run, how you can look after your human resource better, and also some of the tools that can really anchor your new venture well.